A Texas mom vanishes without a trace after a fight with her husband. She hasn't been seen or heard from in more than a year. But does a power tool with her DNA on it unlock a huge clue as to what happened to her? We're breaking down the latest in this shocking case out of the Lone Star State. This is Inside the Crime, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Elizabeth Millner. Now, I know what true crime watchers are thinking. A missing mom, a fight before her disappearance. It had to be someone close to her, like her husband, right? But here's the problem though. Investigators still haven't found her body. So really, prosecutors have a circumstantial case, but still with a lot of evidence leaning toward the husband being behind his wife's disappearance. By just the looks of it, Suzanne and Brad Simpson seem to have a beautiful life together. Her social media page shows numerous photos of their life. Their kids, birthdays, holidays, vacations, fishing trips, you name it. They appeared picture perfect. But how does the saying go? Looks can be deceiving? Court records reveal behind closed doors Brad Simpson was physically abusive toward his wife. In court documents filed last November, it was revealed Brad assaulted his wife once in August of 2023 and another time on October 6th of 2024. Suzanne even confided in others about Brad's alleged treatment of her. According to court documents, the Texas mom told her personal banker that her husband would often take her phone away from her, and then he would just seemingly try to manipulate their kids by telling them, oh, she just lost her phone. Plus, Suzanne was an accomplished real estate agent. She wasn't just losing her phone, which is likely the same phone used to contact potential clients, but whatever was going on in their home, it seemed Suzanne realized something bad could happen to her, because according to court documents, she told her banker a very eerie final message. She allegedly told the banker, if I go missing, look for me in a lake. It's hard to imagine that phrase was told to the banker in any lighthearted way, especially given what happened next. So police point out two instances of physical violence in those November 2024 court documents. It's important to note here, after one of those instances, she was never heard from again. So let's go back to October 6th of 2024. Brad and Suzanne were attending a party at the Argyle Club in Alamo Heights. Alamo Heights is just a few miles away from San Antonio, Texas. And let's just say Alamo Heights is kind of swanky. There's a lot of money in that community. So Brad, Suzanne, and their 5-year-old daughter attended the swanky party, but witnesses say there was tension even at the party. According to police, witnesses said Brad and Suzanne got into an argument at the party, and then Suzanne left with their daughter. They left around 8:30 p.m. on October 6th, and video surveillance, according to court documents, shows Suzanne and her daughter visiting a grocery store about 10 minutes later. Around 9:15 that night, Suzanne reportedly called her friend telling her she was coming over. Surveillance video also corroborated that, because police say Suzanne's car was seen at her friend's home around 9:25 that night. On the drive back home, according to court documents, Suzanne called her mom saying that Brad assaulted her that night. She was even in pain. She allegedly told her mom that Brad caused her pain to her arm, her back, and even her neck. Now, remember how I said earlier Brad allegedly would control Suzanne by taking her phone away? According to investigators that night, Suzanne's cell phone service was suspended around the same time. Police say the suspension was at the request of the subscriber, and police don't believe when they say subscriber they meant Suzanne. Detectives believe Brad called to disconnect Suzanne's phone, which is interesting because he allegedly told police his wife lost her phone at H-E-B. By 10:22 p.m. that evening, Suzanne was back at home. Family members told detectives that was the last time they saw her location on Find My Friends. But around that same time, a neighbor told police he saw Brad and Suzanne arguing, and loudly. He also saw something scary happen. He saw a physical struggle. Then he saw Suzanne break free and run toward a wooded area near their home. From what the neighbor saw, Brad followed Suzanne, and then the neighbor heard screams. The neighbor didn't report seeing Suzanne again, but did see about an hour later Brad take off in his truck and then return later that night. Detectives say during the time when Brad was allegedly off in his truck, he intentionally engaged in an on-off cycle of turning his phone on and off, meaning the phone wasn't collecting data, and police believe he was doing that to avoid detection. Surveillance video from the next day doesn't show any sighting of Suzanne. Instead, it shows Brad dropping off their daughter at school. But in the trunk of his truck, there's some seemingly suspicious items in there. You know, there's a reason that Law&Crime is the go-to spot for all legal and true crime content on YouTube. Just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan is America's largest personal injury law firm. They're a firm with more than 1,000 attorneys, and that's because they win a lot. They've recovered over $25 billion from more than 500,000 clients. In the past few months, a client in Florida received $12 million after the insurance company offered just $350,000. In Pennsylvania, a client was awarded $26 million, 40 times the insurer's $650,000 offer. Another client in Pennsylvania received $29 million after being offered only $500,000. Even if you think your case isn't worth millions, why not start a claim and fight for what you deserve? Morgan & Morgan makes it so easy you can start a claim from your phone in just 8 clicks. So if you're injured, you can easily start a claim at forthepeople.com/insidethecrime by clicking the link below or scanning the QR code on your screen. Like white trash bags with red strings and a large ice chest. After that, Brad is spotted going to Whataburger, still with those items in his trunk, which police say were 3 white trash bags, a large gray heavy-duty trash can, an ice chest, and a large bulky item wrapped in a blue tarp with a silver metal firewood rack to weigh it down. Could that bulky item be Suzanne? Well, police couldn't confirm that. But Brad allegedly made some suspicious purchases too. He allegedly went to Home Depot, paid only in cash, and he bought cement, a construction bucket, 32 count of heavy-duty trash bags, Clorox disinfectant spray, and insect repellent. Suspicious, yes, but does that equal murder? Well, it probably didn't help either that Brad allegedly approached a stranger asking where the nearest dump site was. That person directed Brad to Kendall County Solid Waste, and when he drove over there, police say Brad kept shutting his phone off and on, seemingly to throw people off the proverbial scent. Surveillance video then catches him filling up his truck at a gas station. Now, he allegedly bought the gas with his debit card, but used cash when buying jugs of water. By the time he's filling up, the trash bags are gone, but the blue tarp, firewood rack, and trash can are still in his trunk. According to police, by this point, Brad also changed his shoes from black sandals to cowboy boots. I mean, they are in Texas, but still, given everything, it seems a little suspicious. After that, Brad allegedly kept turning his phone off and on, and at some point the blue tarp was gone, or as police said, no longer visible. And the firewood rack was repositioned within the truck bed. Later that afternoon, Brad picks their daughter up from school. Even though he didn't have the tarp, police say the ice chest and heavy-duty trash can were still there. Police say a little after 4 p.m. that day, Brad took his truck to the car wash, where surveillance video captures him cleaning the driver's front side and the left rear passenger side of the passenger compartment. Less than 30 minutes later, Brad allegedly texted his business partner, James Cotter, or Val, "If you're in Bandera, can you haul and meet me at your house? I don't have much time." Val responded, "I'll be there in 40 minutes. Brad allegedly responded, "Okay, make sure and leave all that into the pump house, especially the gun." Val allegedly responded 4 hours later, "Get over here. I won't tell anyone." On October 8th, now 2 days after Suzanne was last seen, a Bandera County Sheriff's deputy contacted Brad saying that there was a fire at his property in that area. Deputies found 3 cell phones and a laptop in a burn pit, and they believe all 3 phones belonged to Brad. By October 9th, now 3 days after Suzanne was last seen, Brad was arrested. But he wasn't charged with murder. He was initially charged with assault family violence, but investigators say he didn't appear surprised he was arrested or that he even questioned it. Police say when he was arrested, they found 2 notes, one titled "This Next Life" and the other one titled "Last Will and Testament." Officials say he even appeared unconcerned about his missing wife. A few weeks after Brad's assault arrest, his business partner, the one he was texting to haul you-know-what, well, James Cotter, aka Val, was taken into custody on October 21st, accused of helping Brad hide an illegal gun. It wasn't until November that Brad would officially be charged with murder. And according to police, he's been uncooperative in the investigation. But prosecutors are moving forward with their case, even without the biggest piece of evidence they need to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, that being Suzanne's body. Even to this day, she still hasn't been found. After Brad's arrest, the couple's older daughter came out against her own father, writing on social media, "My mom was a victim of abuse from my father. My father took my mother's life in a state of rage and control. In our community, this should not be happening, and I will not stop speaking as the voice of my mother until she is found. I will forever represent all victims of domestic abuse and assault. As my mother's daughter, I will tell our story over and over again. With every breath, I will make sure you remember her name." According to reports, Brad isn't even able to contact some of his children. He reportedly is allowed to write supervised letters to his 15-year-old. His adult children, though, reportedly want to have no contact with him, and he's prohibited to contact his 5-year-old daughter, who might have been a witness to her mom's assault. Now, obviously, in a case like this, when it's family versus family, emotions spill. Suzanne's sister, Teresa, even finding herself in hot water. According to police, she was charged with harassing her brother-in-law's family. Brad's family reportedly told police Teresa left threatening phone calls and messages to them, allegedly saying things like, "You don't know who you're messing with, and you will not get away with this." Brad's family described the behavior going on for a while, and that's when they decided to get police involved. Teresa is reportedly only facing a misdemeanor of harassment, but that could still result in a fine and possible jail time if she were to be convicted. As for Brad, he still sits in a jail cell awaiting trial, but new court documents reveal Brad is also named as the beneficiary and executor of his wife's will. Not unusual for married couples, right? Especially since Suzanne's will was reportedly filed in 2014, 10 years before her disappearance. According to Fox San Antonio, under Texas law, a person convicted of intentionally killing someone can't inherit from them, even if they are named as the beneficiary in the victim's will. And if Brad is convicted on his charges, he would lose any right to Suzanne's estate or be able to serve as an executor of her will. Suzanne's family continues to hold on to hope to finally get the answers they've been wanting for months. The family opened a memorial fund in her honor, writing, "Suzanne was a loving daughter, wife, mother, and realtor who disappeared October 6, 2024. Her legions of friends remember her keen sense of humor, passion for motherhood, worker bee nature, and uncanny ability to make light of disappointment. This fund honors a life lived with grace, dignity, and character. It will celebrate her life and carry her light through community impact." There are so many layers in this case and so many questions left unanswered. The number one question being, where is Suzanne's body? I'm joined now by retired homicide detective Dr. Ken Lang. Thank you so much for joining me today. Dr. Lang, it's been more than a year since Suzanne disappeared. Her husband is expected to go on trial soon for her murder, but do you think there's a chance that investigators will possibly be able to find her body?
So, as an investigator looking for the body, we sometimes may find parts and pieces of that. Cases that have these situations where there is no body to produce to show that the types of injuries that were sustained and the cause and manner of death, that becomes difficult and both for the investigator and for the prosecutor when you're looking at fulfilling the requirements of prosecuting beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. And so finding the body is a priority for investigators, and looking for evidence that may lead them it becomes vitally important in that aspect. So it is possible that investigators can find evidence to show what happened to the body. In this case, we have her DNA found on this skill saw. And so was that used to dismember the body? If so, where was that used? Did investigators find any trace of evidence within the house that may have showed an area that could have occurred? Uh, that's a rather messy situation, dismembering a body, and it produces a lot of physical evidence. We also have these bags, these containers that were used in the truck that were seen. At least the information that's coming out about uh, these trash bags and this cooler, if you will. Have they relocated that? If not, is there traces of evidence still left in the truck? It's been a year, but this has been an ongoing investigation. So what they have, and we're not really quite sure. If the body has been disposed of in, say, a landfill a year ago, I would say the probability of finding the body at this point in that capacity is nil to none. However, there's also information in this case that Brad had bought some quickcrete cement. And so then a question I would have is, are there any bodies of water that would be conducive for disposing of a body that way, using the quickcrete to weigh the body down? And if so, where would that be? So, in locating the body, then it becomes important to see if we can't put together his timeline and his whereabouts on that timeline. And so, with him turning on and off the phone, it not capturing GPS coordinates throughout that makes it a little difficult, but the investigators can piece that together and try to find some elements of her remains.
And then just going back to last year around this time frame when she was first reported just missing because, without a body, they couldn't necessarily confirm, that she had been dead. But then hearing about the motorized saw with her DNA on it, it's kind of hard not to think that, the outcome is that she was murdered, or even just the fact that she had left her children, her child who was supposed to be picked up from school. That's something that Suzanne normally did. But just going back to last year, Ken, I'm thinking to myself in terms of the investigation and how tough it is to search for a body in an area like Bexar County where there's so much land. It's a drier place than maybe like Florida, but it's such a vast area with just so much land, a lot of dirt. It's humongous. And it feels like it would just be so hard to find her now at this point. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely on that. It would become extremely difficult. In fact, that area of the nation is what produced Betty Pat Gatliff, who became a world-renowned 3D skull reconstructionist, and because bodies were being disposed of in that climate, it's arid, it's dry, bodies will decompose quickly, more so than out here, say on the East Coast, where it's more humid. And because of that, you end up being left with nothing but skeleton. And so, but with the DNA capabilities today, we could positively identify any remains that are found in that way, if it was disposed that way. But as an investigator and having read through some of the facts of this case as we see them, about him conversing and about being near the dump, and in that area, I am more inclined to think that that is probably where the body was disposed.
So, Dr. Lang, I'm curious your thoughts on all the circumstantial evidence in this case. I know you were speaking about it just a few moments ago. We have a neighbor who witnessed an argument between Suzanne and Brad the night she disappeared. Then that same neighbor heard screams. Police say Brad is caught on surveillance video traveling with trash bags and a blue tarp. There's burnt laptops, multiple cell phones belonging to Brad, plus the saw with Suzanne's DNA on it, according to prosecutors. So it seems like they have a lot of evidence against him, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on all of this evidence and whether or not it'll be more important than possibly the witness testimony.
So I have to say that it's circumstantial evidence is just as important as real and direct evidence as we have in this case. So we have this saw with her DNA on it. How much DNA on it is on it? If she were alive and well, there would be an explanation for this. She was using the saw, had an injury. We would have that kind of information, but we don't have her. And so then, examining that saw becomes direct evidence. But then we have the circumstantial evidence with the bags and with the cooler in the truck and locations and all of that. The phone going on and off. This all speaks to foul play. It doesn't necessarily bring you to the requirement of beyond a reasonable doubt. However, if you then take and couple the circumstantial evidence with other evidence, such as witnesses, their testimony. We have the neighbor across the street who's given this information about what they observed about this confrontation that night that she was last seen. So, and then we have these other circumstances where she's been reaching out and talking to different people about how Brad will take her phone away from her in those cases. And so all of that becomes a storyline that investigators are going to have to play out in court, and just because we have evidence, we also have to look at what we don't have, and what don't we have, and can we prove that? So, for example, we don't have her body. Is the defense going to be able to come up and argue that she just picked up and left? bad domestic situation. She just left. She doesn't want to be found or seen. But as investigators, we would look into her financial world, her social media world, and we would start examining all of that. And when we can show that for over a year, she has had zero contact with any of her other family and friends who she was getting along with. She's had zero contact with financial institutions, which you need to survive, to rent, buy a place to live,
Yeah.
to buy food. And in order to get those loans or to secure deposits and conduct some of those financial transactions, you have to use your social security number.
Mhm.
So we reach out and we see where were the inquiries with that social security number, and when they're not there, then we can start to show that she's no longer alive. And so, proving a case without a body is difficult. It's long. It's arduous in the investigation, but it's possible.
Yeah, and we've seen cases that have gone to trial without a body. It's not unusual, but I'm interested in whether or not the jury will believe the prosecution's theory of the case, or if they might possibly, in the realm of possibilities, side with the defense. But I'm also wondering whether or not that this might have been premeditated. And I want to go back to a point you had just said in your answer there, where Suzanne, according to court documents, had told her personal banker, if I go missing, to look for me in a lake. So it seems like maybe that there's that possibility that maybe she was getting threatened before, allegedly by her own husband, because there was domestic abuse according to their children inside the home, all of that. But it seems like she possibly was scared even before she went missing, or she vanished or disappeared, because again, investigators still haven't found her body. But what do you make of just that kind of threat that she was under even before she disappeared?
I would think that this, to some extent, was premeditated.
Mm.
Not necessarily that it was so calculated that on this particular day and time, this was the time the event was going to happen. But for some period of time, while this relationship had deteriorated, that Brad had to be thinking about, how do I end this? How do I get out of this? How do I make this go away? Right. And I'm thinking that if she had these conversations with people that if I go missing, look for me in a lake, he had to have said something to her in the heat of the passion, in his anger, that would have given her some inference to the idea that he was thinking about foul play in this case. Now, other than the witness testimony to that, you're not going to have much evidence. But then again, that's going to fall into that storyline we were just talking about earlier, too, and putting together all this circumstantial evidence with a little bit of real evidence, and the evidence that we have that we can prove that she's not been active on anywhere on the earth.
Especially, I can't emphasize enough just about how she hasn't had any contact with her family or her children. I can't imagine a world where you have a mother who seemed just so involved in all of her children's lives, picking them up from school, and then to just disappear without a trace. You would think that if there was that possibility she just left, that she would contact her children. And it seems like there hasn't been any type of contact since her disappearance last year. And one of the latest developments in this case, too, Ken, was the arrest of Suzanne's sister, Teresa. Now, from what we know, it was a misdemeanor arrest, but it was allegedly for harassing Brad Simpson's family. What's your reaction to her arrest, since she allegedly said things along the lines of, you don't know who you're messing with, you will not get away with this? I mean, it is family versus family, and I can imagine how heated and tense things are between the two. But I mean, what's your reaction to Suzanne's sister's arrest?
So it doesn't surprise me that she responded that way. I mean, some
Hmm.
people do,
Right.
and it's that's normal. We're people. We have our psychology about us, and others are able to contain themselves better than others, and this is part of how she's dealing with this grief, how she's working through her grief. As a family member, there's no body, there's been no funeral, there's no been final anything. In my experience, it's in these situations, sometimes family members hold on to this little fragment of hope that she's out there somewhere, that she's still alive. And then now, as this information is coming through, it's playing out in the media, and it's becoming known to to everybody, it stands to reason that she's now starting to grapple uh, with the fact that Suzanne is now probably dead, and that's going to cause that reaction. Will it have an effect on the case against Brad? No, not at all. The court will look at this as two separate incidents. They will take and they will try them. Was her actions legal? No. Were they warranted? That depends on the person and how you would expect them to respond to that. And so I don't think this is going to have a real impact on his case. And I just think that we're just seeing some genuine emotion come from the family in this moment.
And what do you think in terms of possibly finding Suzanne's body? Do you think prosecutors may say, hey, we'll give you this amount of time in a plea agreement as long as you tell us where she is so we can bring closure to your entire family? Do you think that could be a possibility the state might choose to do as we get closer to trial time?
That's actually a key point that we would have hit on as investigators early in the investigation. Typically, what happens is in these types of investigations, again, they're long, they're arduous. You'll sit down, you'll speak with the husband. At some point, you begin to suspect the husband as the primary suspect involved in that. You begin looking for those discrepancies in accounts as you do different interviews throughout a period of time. And then you confront them with them during that interview once you start getting those discrepancies. And then you start hitting on those heartstrings, right? Hey, look, the family wants to bring resolution to this. Let's do the right thing. Where can we find the body? If he was just adamant and not saying anything in that room about that, and he's not going to go in that direction, I don't foresee him doing that at this juncture as a matter of a defense and to reduce his sentence in a way through a plea agreement. I think he and probably the defense are thinking, and it's true that the prosecution has quite a task on their hands proving murder in the degrees that they're charging him with, beyond a reasonable doubt, to a moral certainty, in a courtroom when you don't have the body, you have circumstantial evidence, and the defense is going to attack each piece of the circumstantial evidence in a way that's going to bring, hopefully for them, reasonable doubt will be their argument. And so I think he and the defense are going to be more inclined not to say anything, not to take any plea agreements, and roll the dice and take their chances in court.
And I guess we'll see how that continues to play out. Dr. Ken Lang, I want to thank you so much for your time and your insight into this case. I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Online records reveal Brad Simpson is still behind bars on a $3 million bond. His trial is slated to begin in February of 2026. As for his business partner, James Cotter, aka Val, he was released on bond, but he's still awaiting trial for his charges. That does it for this episode. Be sure to check out more episodes on the Law and Crime YouTube channel. But for now, I'm Elizabeth Millner, and this has been Inside the Crime.